Hi there, it's Chris from Rat Race Rebellion. I wanted to share with you this scam that came across my desk very recently when I actually received a success story from one of our Rat Race Rebels. She sent me an email saying that she had recently been hired by Walgreens and she was excited about that. And then she also said that she had received another job offer from a company called Jupiter Marine, but she hadn't recalled applying to that job. So right off the bat, I thought, this sounds a little suspect. And I asked her to send me their offer email so that I could have a look at it and dig in a little bit deeper. She was kind enough to send that email to me. And I'm looking at it right now. And essentially it says it's a special invitation for a virtual interview. They're giving the name Mrs. Ramsey Marsha, and the interview is to be held in the Session app. Now, I had actually never heard of Session before. Apparently, it's an instant message application that you can erase. You can get rid of conversations after you've had them. Little suspicious. So they gave her a meeting ID number, and I thought, what the heck? This wasn't sent to me. But I'm going to go ahead and pretend it was sent to me and reply to this Ramsey Marsha. So that's exactly what I did. And you can see that they're claiming to be from Jupiter Marine, and they're giving the name Darren Glick, and they're putting in the website URL as being jupitermarine.com. It's in Florida. But I want you to notice that it says jupitermarine.com, but the email address is jupiter-marine.com. So there are a few red flags in here. First of all, the fact that there's a job offer coming in for a job that this individual doesn't remember applying for. Secondly, that this is an interview that's going to be happening on an app, really unusual for a legitimate company, especially within the United States, looking for an employee within the United States. And then that strange difference between the website URL and the email address URL. So I decided to dive in and have a deeper look. So one of the first things I did was I went over to jupitermarine.com. And that is a legitimate company, not just by looking at their website. Don't ever take a website for meaning that a company is legitimate. I did some research on the company. They are legitimate. They are based in Florida. They've been around for a long time. And then I jumped over to whois.com, and looked up jupitermarine.com just to take a look and see how long they've been around for, at least in terms of their website. And this site was registered in 1999, and it doesn't expire until 2030. So this is a company that's really serious about keeping this website. And you can see that they've registered the domain, they've put in their company information, everything checks out there. Then I decided to look for jupiter-marine.com. This is a website that was registered on March 27th of 2023. So the day that I'm making this video, it's September 26th, 2023. And as I did some research into the scam, it's been going around for about 6 months now, which makes a lot of sense. That means that this is a scammer who set up this domain to make it look as though they were the real Jupiter Marine, so that they could send out emails to unsuspecting people who are looking for jobs and try to rope them into their scam. So it's one of the first things that I do is check into the legitimacy of the company, look for any discrepancies in the emails. I would have been just as suspicious if it had been coming from a Gmail address or a Yahoo address or any address that wasn't coming from jupitermarine.com, because just as you're writing to somebody at Rat Race Rebellion, it's going to be cdurst@ratracerebellion.com or mheron@ratracerebellion.com, because that's our domain and that's what's attached to our email addresses as well. So that was the first thing that kind of jumped out at me. So what we're finding is this is definitely a domain that was set up expressly for the purpose of making people believe that they are the real Jupiter Marine. They are not. All right. So the next step was for me to get on my phone and download the Session app and see what this was all about. And I did. I downloaded the app and I went to the URL, that session, the meeting number that had been provided to the individual who had sent me that email, and didn't pretend to be her or anything sketchy like that. Told them my name was Chris, that I had received the email, and that I was very interested in learning more, because I certainly am. And they were so happy to hear from me. They remembered my application and they were so happy to hear from me. Isn't that amazing? So anyway, they asked me a series of questions, and they were the types of questions that would have been asked by an HR person or a talent acquisition person during the course of an interview. So they're doing their best to sound legitimate. The other thing that was really interesting about this scam is the individual with whom I was communicating actually spoke and wrote in very good English, which is a little uncommon for these types of scams. So that is a red flag that we usually tell you to watch out for, is poor English, but that wasn't present in this scam. So just goes to show that not all scammers are alike. So anyway, I went back and forth with them, and then they promised that they would follow up with an email because they said I sounded like the ideal candidate. They just wanted to send my answers by the human resources manager, and that they would get back in touch with me shortly. And they did, in the form of an email. Let me bring you over to that. Okay, so I got this really lengthy email with this wonderful description of the job. So they're telling me about the company, and they give me all of these details that they pulled from the real Jupiter Marine website. And they actually gave me the real company's website address, because they want to make sure that as a job seeker, I can go to that website and feel really confident and really comfortable with the fact that Jupiter Marine is a legitimate company, because it is. So at the same time that they're trying to scam me, they're putting this other company in jeopardy, because they're tarnishing the reputation by sending around these scam job offers. So they go through the job duties, it's customer service and order entry. Doesn't sound like anything terribly complex. It's all fairly cut and dry. So anyway, and by the way, the pay they're saying is $24 an hour, but only $20 an hour during training, and it's full time, and they're offering benefits and everything else. And so, yeah, so it sounds lovely. Sounds like a wonderful position. So of course I say, hi, Marcia, I'm ready to get started. What do I need to do? Thank you so much. I'm enthusiastic. Marcia loves enthusiasm, because that means that there's a victim about ready to jump into the kettle. So she sent me a sessions message telling me that human resources was going to go over it. And then she told me that human resources had completed their review, and I've been offered the position for full time, to check my email for confirmation from human resources, and to fill out the paperwork. So she, and I did receive another email supposedly from human resources with documents attached to it that I'm supposed to print out and send back to them. Let me show you those documents. So this is the email that I received from human resources. Again, it's careers at Jupiter hyphen, that hyphen is so important, marine.com, because it's that hyphen that told me that it wasn't the real company that it was coming from. They've decided to give me a chance to prove my worth, so that they can see my diligence, charisma, and commitment toward my duties. Okay. Keep shoveling it on. Shovel it on, people. They've even assigned me an employee confirmation ID number. How exciting. And then at the bottom are the documents that I'm supposed to print out and get back to them. Interestingly, what they sent along are actual documents that can be found on the US government website. So there's the US Department of Labor Supplemental Information Form, where they're asking for some information, okay? My full name, where I went to school, degree, those types of things. Nothing too serious there, but as I start to go through these documents, what I want you to notice is the details that they're extracting from an individual who thinks that they're applying for a legitimate job. Think about the kinds of questions that you're asked to answer when you are setting security questions. For example, where did you go to school? So let's just take that one and bank that in your memory. Then there's this form, another legitimate form that comes from the Department of Homeland Security. It's basically to make sure that you are eligible for employment within the United States. And look at the information that they're extracting here. And people don't question it because it is a legitimate form when it's used by a legitimate employer. So again, they're getting a street address, they're getting my date of birth, they would be getting my social security number. They are asking if I'm a US citizen, am I a permanent citizen? And then this is where it gets interesting because you have to provide documents to verify that you are who you say you are and that you are indeed a citizen of the United States or eligible to work in the US, okay? So we can choose documents from List A, List B, or List C. Let's just take a look to see what those documents are. They can be your passport. They can be your driver's license or an ID issued by the state, another kind of ID card, your voter registration card, your military ID card, your school records, social security. So all kinds of information that can be used to steal your identity and set up accounts in your name after they have all of these details. By the time they put together all of the information that you've provided for them during the course of the interview, and also, oops, I just downloaded that and I didn't mean to. I meant to pull this. So yeah, this is just a recap and looking for a signature from me saying that I'm ready to jump on board because they're trying to make it look extremely professional. All right. And so, yeah, so they've done all of this to go out of their way to look like this legitimate company. And again, the real company is Jupiter Marine. And just to show you, they're pulling, you see that logo up here. And then if you look at the documents that they are sending along, they've pulled that same logo from that company website, the real company logo, to put into their scam so that people think that they're actually working for Jupiter. So what I did was, in the course of this interview, I sent them a session message. First of all, I didn't send the documents back because I knew that that would trigger further dialogue with this Ramsey who's contacting me. So they sent this to me and she said, we moved straight on with I said to her, what's next? And she said, we moved straight with the onboarding process. How soon are you able to have the forms returned to human resources? Now, remember, this is what they really want from me. They really want those forms. They don't want to hire me. They don't want to hire anybody. What they want is a bunch of information that they can use themselves and then sell on the dark web to other people who also want to get your details so that they can set other things up. So anyway, I said, I could get it to you within the next 2 hours. I'll need to print it out, fill them in, scan them, and send them back. Her response was, okay, have that done and report once completed. I have a couple more steps to be completed once the HR has received your information. Do not forget to write out your employee code boldly on each of the documents along with the national issued identity you have. And I said, okay. And she said, let me know as soon as you've sent them in. And I said, I will. Thank you. Hear that persistence, that like, get this in quickly, right? Now, listen to that sense of desperation, that sense of urgency as this conversation progresses. So I didn't do anything, not for the next 2 hours. And then about 5 hours later, I got another session message saying, "Hello, Chris." And I said, "Nothing." And she said, "Have you filled the forms out and returned them to HR?" And I said, "I'm sorry, haven't had a chance yet. There was a family emergency today." An hour later, "Hello, Chris. Hope you had a good night." Oh, no, I'm sorry. This was the next morning. I said, "Thank you. It was okay." And then nothing. "Were you able to send those forms in over last night?" So I said, "I was talking with my son, and he said that this job sounds like a scam. He said it doesn't seem right that a company hiring from Florida is doing their interviews over an app only." Response: remote positions tend to beat that form, okay, or to beat that norm. This is how we have done interviews for the past year. I said, "He suggested that I call the office in Florida directly just to confirm. So I will try that this morning." "Okay, that's good," she said. And I thought, wow, that's really unusual. So I didn't say anything. And then I said, "Well, thank you for your understanding. I have the paperwork filled out and ready to go." And she said, "All right, give me a heads up when you're set to proceed." I said, "I will. Thank you. What's the best number for me to call at the corporate office in Florida?" And she said, she gave me this number. I'm going to tell you what the number is. It's 941-263-7312. It's a number that is not at all associated with the real Jupiter Marine. I said, "Thanks." So I called that number and nobody picked up, but then I got a call back from that number. Now, nobody picked up, and I got a message saying the person you're calling is unable to answer your call at this time. So I got the call back, and it was coming from this number that she had given me. And by the way, I'm sure she is probably a he and not a she. So anyway, regardless, it's a scammer. But so anyway, about an hour after I made that call, which clearly this person knew I had called because it's somebody coming from within their organization, she said, "Did you speak with HR already?" And I waited a couple of hours, and then I responded and said, "I did." And she said, "Good. Have you submitted the forms?" She said, "I sent them yesterday afternoon." And she said, "Okay, I'll confirm with HR shortly. Please be on standby for the next steps." And then about 40 minutes later, "Your paperwork is yet to be received as of this moment. Please check to confirm you sent them and to the right email." So I said, very innocently, "Oh my goodness, I sent it to the same email address that I received it from." "Never came in," was her response. "I'm not at my computer right now, but I'll check as soon as I return home." So she said, "You can send it to," and then she gave me a Gmail address. "That's my email address," she said. I said, "Okay." And then she started to get persistent. "What time do you get home from work today?" I said, "It's Saturday. I'm not at work. I'm running errands." Because at this point with scammers, I like to be a little abrasive or sarcastic because you would never do that with a real employer, and a real employer would never tolerate it. But the scammers always will, because employing you is not the end game. So yeah, I'm not at work. I'm running some errands. I expect to be home in about 2 hours. She said, "Okay, let me know as soon as you're home." And I said, "Okay, you're kind of pushy." "Is there a problem?" she said. I said, "Not really. I just feel like you're being kind of pushy. I'll let you know when I get home." To which the response was, "Sorry about that. I know you have your schedule to work around. I'm just trying to make sure we move at the right pace and get things done as soon as possible." To which I said, "Thank you for your understanding." And she said, "You're welcome. Take your time. I don't mean to rush you." That was the last conversation that I had with the folks at Jupiter because I had already determined what the end game was. Now, I could keep them on the hook a little bit longer, but I should let you know that when I got that phone call, it came from a man who I could tell English was not his primary language, but he spoke it very well. This is somebody who had a almost refined uh, British accent that was clearly not being spoken by somebody who was born and raised in the UK. Which I thought was kind of interesting. And he did give a different name. I can't remember. I think it was Brad or Brian or something like that. So they did a really good job of trying to pull this one over. And I think a lot of people probably have fallen for this, and now their information is out there. I'm not going to take it to the next step to find out if I receive anything further from them, because if I do, it's just going to be some sort of a bogus something to keep me on the hook until they've got my information into their system and have started to undermine me. Anyway, wanted to bring this to your attention so you can see how these things work, so that you have a few tools to work with if you ever encounter something like this. Just be so careful. Do your homework. Check the URLs. Make sure that it's coming from a legitimate company's website. Check it against the email addresses. Call the company if you have any doubts. I've just received this job offer. I have some questions as to whether or not it's real. Now, don't call every company for every job. You can tell a lot of the ones that are legitimate, but this one had so many of the earmarks and markings. It was a job offer that was being received by somebody who didn't recall ever applying to that job. The company website is legitimate, but it didn't match the email address being given. The person calling from the number they gave me for Jupiter didn't say Jupiter when I called them. It just said the person you were calling. It was very clearly set up through Skype or Google Phone or something along those lines, but it triggered them to give me a call back. So they were spoofing a phone number that appeared to be in Florida, but it wasn't in Florida. It was a phone number that was selected to give that appearance. So lots of red flags here. Go to whois.com and put in the domain. In this case, I put in the jupiter-marine.com because that was the one that was suspicious to me after determining that jupitermarine.com was actually part of a legitimate company. So yeah, just bringing it to your attention, letting you know that these are the kinds of things that you need to be watching out for. Be so careful. And oh yeah, one big red flag that I should have mentioned at the end here is that most legitimate companies will not do a text only. I mean, to make you download an app to do an interview for a job and then communicate with you in writing only is unheard of, whether it's Google Chat or Session or, oh my gosh, there are several of the other ones out there that they're doing this on now. Just don't do that. It's not legitimate. It is not legitimate. So again, be careful and keep coming to Rat Race Rebellion to look for legitimate jobs and to find out how to search for jobs on your own when you want to go above and beyond what we're able to do for you. That's it. Be safe. So here's a brief follow-up. After I completed recording that sort of an overview of the Jupiter Marine scam, or the scammers, I shouldn't say the Jupiter Marine scam, I should say the scammers using the Jupiter Marine name, because Jupiter Marine is a legitimate long-term company. I actually called Jupiter Marine to let them know what I had found out, and sort of took them through the steps of what I had done to draw that conclusion of what had happened. And indeed, they confirmed they've been getting bombarded with phone calls from people saying, is this real? Or I've been scammed. And they were sort of at wit's end trying to figure out how to handle this. So I did take them through that process. Showed them the whois, suggested that they get in touch with the domain registrar to report the abuse of the domain, hopefully get that website pulled down altogether. It's not going to stop the scammers. They'll move on to another company. But in the meantime, they're damaging the name of Jupiter Marine. So Jupiter Marine is going to go ahead and put up a notice on their website careers page notifying people that this is not coming from them. They are not hiring for this position and it has nothing to do with them. So hopefully that will help people avoid that scam as well. The scammers never give up. They just change their hats, change their names, and move on to another company to put in their crosshairs so that they can use that company's name to pull in other unsuspecting job seekers. So just wanted to let you know that we've closed the loop on that. We filed a report with the Internet Crime Complaint Center and the Federal Trade Commission. I'm 99.9% sure that the scammer is outside of the US, so there's probably very little that they can do about it, but at least it's on their radar. That's it. Just wanted to close the loop with you. Have a great day.